then in this document, which was prepared by Joanne, uh, she said, historically, that was the first word in the sentence, historically, my agency, meaning Mr. Mumau, has been issuing a lot of documents of title and registration without authority in current law. Without authority. Doesn't that mean illegally?
The DMV is collecting revenue that they didn't have authorization to collect.
Historically. Mm-hmm.
And what we know about statutes is once it's established, is it retro? Does it cover?
No, of course not. We have this thing called no ex post facto laws, right? That's U.S. Constitution and Oregon Constitution both have that no ex post facto. So, no, you're not supposed to. But it did.
Is the DMV allowed to collect revenue for something if they're not authorized to?
Well, if they're not.
I mean, like.
Thank you for answering that.
Does there have to be? There has to be. It has to be written.
After the 1985 legislative session, the gal who was the chair of the Transportation Committee, the Joint Transportation Committee, Jane Cease, Senator Cease, took over Mr. Mumau's position as the director of the DMV, and she had been the chair of the Transportation Committee two terms in the House, and she was in her second term in the Senate the year that she passed the optional titling rule. So she knew what was going on. So Jane Cease, when she took over David Mumau's job, she knew, because she got the bill passed, she knew that in order to keep on getting the same revenue, she had to do this. But she didn't get it done. She did spend a lot of money. She said, oh, I made a mistake. I need a few more $1 million. Maybe I need $5 more million. And she did that several times.
For what? What?
She was updating their computer system.
Okay.
And she kept getting it wrong. She claimed, this was her claim.
For the DMV?
For the DMV, uh-huh.
Okay.
And so she never got the rule adopted that was going to provide for this option for the general public to title their vehicles. And then another director came on. That one was Liz Kruniken. And Liz didn't do it either, not for years, until 2005, almost 20 years later, a couple months short of 20 years. But first of all, probably because I called David Irely, who was the director, or the honcho in driver programs, or no, vehicle programs. I'm sorry. There's two major sections of the DMV. One is driver programs, and one is vehicle programs. So he was in the vehicle programs, and I said, "Hi, I'm reading this chapter in the Oregon Vehicle Code, and it's talking about an option to title vehicles. And it sounds like an interesting rule. Could I get a copy of that?" And the guy goes, and he's hesitating for several seconds, and finally he goes, "We decided we didn't want to do it, so we don't have one." I go, "What? Who's we? You and who? Wait, this was your director that went to the legislature and asked for this and spent 5 hours talking to them." Well, actually, it was Joanne Peterson, but she spent 5 hours talking for Mr. Mumau, and you changed his mind?
I mean, she admitted that they were collecting money, and so for 20 years they collected money.
They were still collecting money during that 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, that's right. And they admitted that they had never had the authority before that. And so it was David Irely who ended up writing the rule. The next year, he sent out notice. I called them in late September of 2003. The next year, 2004, he published this thing called Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. And in making rules, you have to say who's going to be financially impacted. So that's called the Statement of Need. And that's another document that everybody needs to get. Statement of Need and Fiscal Impact. And that's the single page out of the whole legislative history when, when Joanne Peterson was talking to the legislature. Starting then up to the point where the rule was finally adopted, the statement of need and fiscal impact is the only page in all of those pages. There's probably, I don't know, several dozen, probably 30 to 40 pages of documents. And that's the only page that has these words. And these are the, what do you call them, verbatim sentence. It says, only members of the general public who choose to apply for title, and then will be financially impacted. That's my words.
Was it repealed?
Oh yeah, it got repealed because, and see, I was causing problems with it. And they knew. I mean, it had never been legal from the beginning, and so they had never had any problems selling it to the general public. But they knew they couldn't continue to hide something bogus like that. So in May 18 of 2012, they repealed it. They passed another rule, adopted another rule, which said OAR 735.022.0120 is repealed in its entirety.
What's the significance of that?
It means it doesn't exist anymore. There's no option for the general public to title their vehicles.
But is there a requirement?
No, there never has been.